Maya never thought her life would change so completely in just 1 week. She was 25 years old, working at a small bookstore in the heart of New Orleans, living a quiet life in a tiny apartment above a coffee shop. Then her grandmother died, and everything turned upside down. Her grandmother, Abuela Rosa, had always been the strongest person Maya knew, even at 92. She ran the old boarding house on Bourbon Street, like she was half her age. The three-story building had been in their family for over 100 years. Maya had grown up visiting that place every weekend, playing in the garden while her grandmother tended to guests. But there was something strange about that boarding house that Maya never quite understood as a child. Some rooms were always kept separate. Certain guests would arrive at odd hours, stay just one night, and leave before breakfast. These visitors never made reservations. They never called ahead. They just showed up, and somehow Abuela Rosa always seemed to expect them. When Maya was little, she would ask her grandmother about these mysterious guests. Why did they look so sad when they arrive? She would wonder. And why did they seem different when they leave? Her grandmother would smile and pat her head. Some people carry heavy things in their hearts, little one. Sometimes they need a safe place to put those heavy things down, even if it's just for one night. Maya didn't understand what that meant back then. She thought her grandmother was just being poetic, the way old people sometimes are when they don't want to explain complicated things to children. The day Abuela Rosa died, Maya sat beside her hospital bed, holding her wrinkled hand. The doctors had said she didn't have long. Her grandmother's breathing was slow and difficult, but her eyes were still bright and alert. "Maya," she whispered, her voice barely audible above the beeping machines. "Come closer." Maya leaned in, tears rolling down her cheeks. She wasn't ready to lose the person who had raised her. After her parents died in a car accident when she was 12, the boarding house, her grandmother continued, pressing something cold and metal into Maya's palm. "It's yours now, but it comes with responsibilities." Maya looked down at what her grandmother had given her. It was an old brass key, worn smooth from decades of use. Attached to it was a small leather journal, tied shut with a faded ribbon. "Abuela, I don't know how to run a boarding house," Maya said, panic rising in her throat. "I work in a bookstore. I don't know anything about managing a business." Her grandmother's grip tightened around Maya's hand with surprising strength. "The regular rooms, yes. You'll need to learn about those. But the 3 special rooms on the 2nd floor, those are different. The journal will tell you everything you need to know." "What do you mean, special rooms?" "Every night, someone will come. Maybe not tonight, maybe not tomorrow, but they will come. They'll arrive when the sun goes down, carrying stories they can't tell anyone else. Your job is simple. Give them a safe room, listen to what they need to say, and let them leave their pain behind." Maya felt confused and overwhelmed. "Abuela, you're not making sense. What kind of stories? Why would strangers come to me?" But her grandmother's eyes were getting heavy. She was fading fast. "Read the journal, little one. Honor the tradition. These people need this place. They need someone who will listen without judging. Promise me." "I promise," Maya whispered, though she didn't really understand what she was promising. 3 hours later, Abuela Rosa was gone. The funeral was small but beautiful. Neighbors from the quarter came to pay their respects. Many of them had stories about how Abuela Rosa had helped them over the years. Some talked about how she had given them a place to stay during hard times. Others mentioned how she always seemed to know exactly what to say when they were struggling. After everyone left, Maya sat alone in the boarding house, staring at the leather journal. She had inherited a 3-story building in one of the most expensive parts of New Orleans. She should have been excited. Instead, she felt terrified. The journal was filled with her grandmother's careful handwriting, page after page of entries, each one dated, each one describing a different person who had stayed in the special rooms. Some entries were short: "Mrs. Chen, room 7, needed to talk about her son who moved far away and never calls." Others were longer, more detailed descriptions of people dealing with guilt, regret, or secrets they couldn't share with anyone in their regular lives. As Maya read, she began to understand. Her grandmother hadn't just been running a boarding house, she had been providing something much more important. A place where people could be completely honest about their pain without fear of judgment or consequences. The entries went back decades. Maya found records of people who had lost children, made terrible mistakes, or carried family secrets that were eating them alive from the inside. Her grandmother had listened to all of them, given them a clean room and a safe space to finally say the things they couldn't say anywhere else. On Maya's fourth day living in the boarding house, she was still trying to figure out how to manage the regular guests when someone knocked on the front door. It was almost midnight. Maya looked through the window and saw an elderly man standing on the porch, wearing a suit that had seen better days. He was clutching an old photograph in his hands. Maya opened the door cautiously. "Can I help you?" The man looked up at her with tired, watery eyes. "Is this still the place?" he asked quietly. "Rosa told me I could come here when I was ready to talk about Vietnam." Maya's heart skipped. This was what her grandmother had been trying to prepare her for. This man was one of the mysterious visitors she had heard about her whole life. "Yes," she said, though her voice shook a little. "This is still the place. Come in." As she led the man upstairs to room 7, the same room her grandmother had used for decades, Maya realized that her quiet life was over. She was now the keeper of other people's deepest secrets, the guardian of their pain, and somehow she would have to figure out how to carry that weight without breaking under it herself. The old man sat on the edge of the bed and began to speak about things that had happened 50 years ago, things he had never told his wife or children or anyone else. And Maya sat in the chair by the window, listening, just as her grandmother had done for so many years before her. This was her inheritance, not just a building, but a sacred responsibility to witness human suffering and provide comfort to those who had nowhere else to turn. The first month was like learning to swim by jumping into the ocean. Maya had no idea how deep the waters were until she was already drowning in other people's stories. After the old veteran left, that first night, Maya thought maybe it would be weeks before another visitor came. She was wrong. 2 days later, a woman in her 40s knocked on the door at 10:30 at night. She was well-dressed, driving an expensive car, but her hand shook as she asked if this was the place where people could talk about things they couldn't say anywhere else. Her name was Linda, and she spent the entire night in room 8 talking about the baby she gave up for adoption. 23 years ago, she had gotten pregnant in college, and her parents insisted she give the child away. Now her adopted daughter had found her on social media, wanting to meet, and Linda was terrified. She had built a whole new life, gotten married, had other children. Her husband and kids didn't even know about her first daughter. "I want to see her," Linda cried, sitting on the bed while Maya listened from the old rocking chair her grandmother had placed in each room. "But what if she hates me? What if my family falls apart? What if I'm not the mother she hoped I would be?" Maya didn't know what to say. She wasn't a counselor or a therapist. She was just a 25-year-old woman who used to sell books for a living. But something her grandmother had written in the journal came back to her. Your job isn't to give advice. Your job is to listen completely, without judgment, until they find their own answers. So Maya listened. She sat in that rocking chair until the sun came up, watching Linda work through 23 years of guilt and fear. By morning, Linda had decided to meet her daughter. She left a small donation in the envelope Maya kept by the door, hugged her like they were old friends, and drove away looking lighter than when she'd arrived. 3 days after that, a teenager showed up, then a middle-aged man who had been hiding a gambling problem from his family, then an elderly woman who had been keeping a family secret for 60 years. Each person brought their own heavy burden, and each person left it in one of those 3 special rooms. Maya began to understand why her grandmother had kept detailed records. The leather journal became her lifeline. She would write down each person's story, not the private details, but the basic facts, who they were, what they were struggling with, how they seemed when they left. Reading back through her grandmother's entries, she saw patterns. Some people came back years later with updates, others sent letters. A few even sent photos of weddings, graduations, or new babies, thanking Abuela Rosa for giving them the courage to face their problems. But the more stories Maya heard, the heavier she felt. She started having trouble sleeping, not because people were coming at night, but because their pain stayed with her long after they left. She would lie in bed thinking about Linda, wondering if she ever met her daughter. She worried about the teenager who had been struggling with thoughts of ending his life. She wondered if the man with the gambling problem had found help, or if he was still destroying his family's finances in secret. Maya's regular life began to suffer. She called in sick to the bookstore more often, exhausted from staying up all night listening to strangers pour out their hearts. Her friends stopped inviting her out because she always had to cancel at the last minute when someone showed up needing help. Her boss at the bookstore started asking questions about her frequent absences. The worst part was the loneliness. Maya couldn't talk to anyone about what she was doing. The people who came to the boarding house trusted her with their deepest secrets because they knew she wouldn't tell anyone else. But that meant Maya had no one to talk to about the emotional weight she was carrying. She tried calling her cousin Diego, who lived in California. They had always been close growing up, and she thought maybe she could explain what was happening without breaking anyone's trust. "It sounds like you're running some kind of underground therapy operation," Diego said when she tried to describe her new life. "Maya, that doesn't sound safe. What if one of these people is dangerous? What if someone calls the police? You don't have any training for this." Maya knew he was right to be worried, but she also knew these weren't dangerous people. They were broken people, lost people, people carrying pain they couldn't share with anyone in their normal lives. When she looked in their eyes, she saw the same desperation she had felt after her parents died, when grief was eating her alive and she didn't know how to make it stop. One night, a woman came who changed everything for Maya. Her name was Patricia, and she was a doctor. She had made a mistake during surgery 3 years ago, a small error that had caused serious complications for her patient. The patient survived, but Patricia had never forgiven herself. She had been carrying the guilt and shame for 3 years, unable to talk to anyone because she was afraid of losing her medical license. "I save lives every day," Patricia said, tears streaming down her face. "But I can't stop thinking about the one time I almost cost someone their life because I was tired. And I missed something obvious." As Maya listened to Patricia's story, she realized something important. These people weren't coming to her because they wanted someone to fix their problems. They were coming because they needed someone to witness their pain, to look them in the eye and say, "I see you, I hear you, your story matters." Maya started to understand that her grandmother had been doing something sacred. In a world where everyone was expected to be perfect all the time, where people had to pretend they had everything together, the boarding house was a place where masks could come off. It was a place where people could be completely honest about their failures, their regrets, and their fears without worrying about consequences. By the end of her first month, Maya had listened to 12 different people tell her their deepest secrets. She had a box full of thank you notes and small donations. She had learned that human pain comes in infinite varieties, but the need to be heard and understood is universal. She also learned that carrying other people's stories was both a privilege and a burden. Every night, she fell asleep thinking about the people who had trusted her with their pain. Every morning, she woke up knowing that someone else might appear at her door that evening, carrying a burden too heavy to bear alone. Maya began to understand why her grandmother had lived to be 92. This work, this sacred act of witnessing human suffering, had given her life meaning and purpose. But Maya also wondered if she was strong enough to carry this responsibility for the rest of her life the way her grandmother had. By month 6, Maya felt like she was living two completely different lives. During the day, she pretended to be normal, working at the bookstore, buying groceries, doing laundry. But every night, she waited for the sound of footsteps on her porch, knowing another broken soul would soon be sitting in one of those 3 special rooms. The lack of sleep was catching up with her, Maya found herself dozing off while helping customers at the bookstore. Her boss, Mrs. Rodriguez, pulled her aside. One Tuesday afternoon. "Maya, honey, you look exhausted. Are you feeling okay? You've been distracted for weeks now." Maya wanted to explain, but how could she tell her boss that she spent her nights listening to strangers confess their deepest secrets? Instead, she just smiled and promised to get more rest. But rest was impossible. The stories haunted her dreams. She would wake up at 3 in the morning thinking about Carlos, the man who had been lying to his wife about losing his job 6 months ago. Or she would lie awake worrying about Teresa, the grandmother who had been stealing money from her church to pay for her grandson's medical treatments. Maya's friends noticed the change too. Her best friend since high school, Anna, stopped by the boarding house one evening, carrying takeout from their favorite restaurant. "You've been avoiding me," Anna said, setting the food on Maya's kitchen table. "Every time I call, you're either too tired to hang out or you have some mysterious emergency. What's going on?" Maya looked at her friend, someone she had shared everything with for over 10 years, and realized she couldn't tell her the truth. The people who came to her trusted her with secrets they couldn't tell their own families. How could she explain that she was now the keeper of other people's pain? "I'm just adjusting to running this place," Maya said weakly. "It's harder than I expected." Anna looked around the kitchen, which was clean and organized. The regular boarding house business was actually going well. Maya had 6 long-term tenants who paid rent on time and caused no problems. "It looks like you're managing fine to me," Anna said. "Maya, are you in some kind of trouble? You can tell me anything. You know that, right?" Before Maya could answer, someone knocked on the front door. It was 8:30 at night, earlier than most visitors usually arrived. Maya's stomach twisted. She hated having to choose between her old life and her new responsibility. "I have to get that," Maya said, standing up. "We haven't even eaten yet," Anna protested. "I know. I'm sorry. Can we do this another time?" Anna's face fell. "You're doing it again. You're pushing me away, and I don't understand why." The knocking continued. Maya could see a young woman through the window, maybe 19 or 20 years old, crying on her porch. This wasn't just someone carrying old guilt or regret. This was someone in immediate crisis. "Anna, I'm really sorry, but I have to handle this. It's important." Her friend gathered up the takeout containers with hurt written all over her face. "Fine. But Maya, whatever is going on with you, shutting out the people who love you isn't going to help." After Anna left, Maya opened the door to find Lucia, a college student whose entire world had just fallen apart. Her boyfriend had been pressuring her to do things she wasn't comfortable with, and when she refused, he had spread lies about her all over social media. Her reputation was destroyed, her friends had abandoned her, and she was failing her classes because she couldn't concentrate. "I heard about this place from someone at school," Lucia said through her tears. "They said you help people who don't have anywhere else to go." Maya led her to room 7 and listened for 4 hours as Lucia poured out her pain. But this time, listening wasn't enough. Lucia needed real help, legal advice, counseling, maybe even a safe place to stay if her situation got worse. "Have you told your parents?" Maya asked. "They would blame me," Lucia said. "They would say I should have been more careful, that I brought this on myself." Maya felt anger rising in her chest, not at Lucia, but at a world that made young women feel responsible for other people's cruelty. Her grandmother's journal had taught her to listen without judgment, but it hadn't prepared her for moments when listening wasn't enough. After Lucia left the next morning, Maya sat in her grandmother's old chair and cried. She was tired of just witnessing pain without being able to fix it. She was tired of carrying other people's burdens while her own life fell apart. She was tired of being alone with all these heavy secrets. That afternoon, Maya did something she had never done before. She walked to the cemetery where her grandmother was buried and sat beside the headstone. "Abuela, I don't know if I can do this," she said out loud, not caring if anyone heard her talking to a grave. "These people need more than just someone to listen. They need real help, and I don't know how to give it to them, The wind rustled through the oak trees, but of course, there was no answer. When Maya got home that evening, she found her father waiting on the porch. She hadn't seen him in 3 months, not since the funeral. He lived across town and usually only called on holidays. "Papa, what are you doing here?" Her father, Roberto, was a practical man who had worked construction his whole life. He believed in solving problems with hard work and common sense, not with feelings and long conversations. "I've been hearing things around the neighborhood," he said. "People talking about strange visitors coming to this house at all hours." "Maya, what kind of business are you running here?" Maya's heart sank. She had hoped her activities would stay private, but in a close-knit community like the French Quarter, secrets were hard to keep. "I'm helping people, Papa." "Helping them with what and why at night? Why all the secrecy?" Maya looked at her father and realized she couldn't explain without sounding crazy. How could she tell him that she was continuing a family tradition he had never known about? Her grandmother had kept the true nature of her work hidden from everyone except Maya. "Your grandmother filled your head with nonsense," Roberto continued. "She was a good woman, but she had strange ideas about helping people. You have a good job at the bookstore. You should sell this place and buy a normal house, find a husband, start a family. This is important work, Papa." "Important?" He looked frustrated. "Maya, you're throwing your life away to play counselor to strangers. You're 25 years old. When I was your age, I had been married for 3 years and had 2 children." That night, after her father left, Maya sat alone in the kitchen, staring at her grandmother's leather journal. She flipped through pages and pages of entries, each one representing a person who had found comfort in this house. But she also thought about Anna's hurt expression when she had chosen a stranger. Over their friendship, she thought about her father's concern, about her job that was slipping away, about the normal life she was sacrificing to carry on a tradition that no one else even understood. Maya wondered if her grandmother had ever felt this alone, this burdened by the weight of other people's secrets. She wondered if there was a way to honor her promise while still having a life of her own. As if summoned by her doubts, someone knocked on the door at midnight. Maya opened it to find an older woman she had never seen before, someone who looked strangely familiar. "Are you Maya?" the woman asked. "Yes, I'm Carmen, Rosa's sister. I think it's time we talked." Carmen looked exactly like Abuela Rosa, but 40 years younger. The same dark eyes, the same way of holding her shoulders straight even when she was clearly nervous. Maya invited her inside, her mind racing with questions. "I know this is strange," Carmen said, settling into the kitchen chair where Anna had sat just hours before. "Rosa and I hadn't spoken in decades, but I heard she died, and I heard you were continuing her work." Maya poured 2 cups of coffee, her hands shaking slightly. "Abuela never mentioned you." "That's because I was her biggest failure," Carmen said quietly. "I was the first person she ever tried to help back in 1983, and instead of getting better, I ran away and never came back." Carmen's story came out slowly, like water from a rusty pipe. 40 years ago, she had been driving home from a party late at night. She had been drinking, though not heavily. A child had run into the street chasing a ball, and Carmen had hit him. The boy survived, but he spent months in the hospital. Carmen panicked and drove away without stopping. "I went to Rosa the next morning," Carmen said, staring into her coffee cup. "I was going crazy with guilt. I wanted to confess to the police, but I was terrified of going to prison. Rosa listened to me all night, just like she listened to everyone. But the next day, instead of finding the courage to turn myself in, I packed my bags and moved to Texas." Maya felt a chill run down her spine. "Did you ever tell the truth?" "No. I built a whole new life in Houston. Got married, had children, became a teacher. For 40 years, I've been living with this secret." The boy recovered completely. "Thank God. I kept track of him over the years. He became a doctor, had a family, but I never had the courage to face what I did." Carmen reached across the table and took Maya's hand. "Rosa wrote to me every Christmas for 20 years, begging me to come home, to face my guilt properly. I Never answered her letters. I was too ashamed. Why are you here now? Maya asked. Because I'm dying, Carmen said simply. Cancer. The doctors say I have maybe 3 months. And I realized I can't die without telling someone the truth. I came back to New Orleans last week and have been driving past this house every night, trying to work up the courage to knock on your door. Maya spent the next 6 hours listening to Carmen unpack 40 years of guilt, shame, and regret. But unlike her other visitors, Carmen wasn't just carrying a secret. She was carrying the weight of knowing that her grandmother's first attempt at helping someone had failed completely. Rosa blamed herself, Carmen said as the sun started to rise. She thought she had said the wrong thing or hadn't listened well enough. She never understood that the problem wasn't her method. The problem was me. I was too cowardly to face the consequences of what I had done. After Carmen left, promising to return the next night to continue talking, Maya couldn't stop thinking about what she had learned, her grandmother's sacred work. This tradition she had inherited had begun with a failure. Someone had come seeking help and had left more broken than before. Maya started reading her grandmother's journal more carefully, looking for patterns she had missed before. She found entries about people who had come back multiple times, unable to find peace even after confessing their secrets. She found notes about visitors who had seemed worse after their stays, more convinced than ever that their problems couldn't be solved. One entry from 1987 particularly troubled Maya. Sometimes I wonder if I'm helping people heal or just giving them permission to avoid dealing with their problems in the real world. Mrs. Thompson has been coming here every few months for 2 years, always to talk about her son's addiction, but she still hasn't gotten him into treatment. She just keeps coming here to feel better about not taking action. Maya realized her grandmother had struggled with the same doubts she was facing. Was listening enough? Were they really helping people, or were they just providing a temporary escape from problems that required real solutions? These doubts became even stronger 2 weeks later when Detective Rodriguez knocked on Maya's door. He wasn't there as a visitor seeking comfort. He was there as a police officer investigating complaints about the boarding house. We've received several reports about suspicious activity at this address, he said. Standing on the porch in his uniform, people coming and going at all hours, cash payments. No official records of who's staying here. Some of your neighbors are concerned you might be running an illegal operation. Maya's heart pounded. What kind of illegal operation could be anything? Unlicensed therapy, unregistered business activities, maybe even something worse. I need to see your business license, your guest registry, and your tax records. Maya realized with horror that she didn't have any of those things. Her grandmother had run the special visitor program completely off the books for 60 years. There were no official records, no licenses, no paper trail that would satisfy a police investigation. I'm not running a business, Maya said. I'm just helping people. Helping them with what, exactly? And why are they paying you cash? Why don't you have any documentation? Maya couldn't explain without revealing the secrets people had trusted her with. She couldn't tell the detective about Linda who had given up her daughter, or Carlos who had lost his job, or any of the dozens of people who had found comfort in those 3 rooms. I need 48 hours to get my records together, Maya said, hoping she sounded more confident than she felt. 48 hours, Detective Rodriguez agreed. But if you can't provide proper documentation, we'll have to shut down whatever operation you're running here. After he left, Maya sat on her porch steps and cried harder than she had. Since her grandmother's funeral, everything was falling apart. Her personal life was in ruins. Her work was under investigation. And now she was learning that her grandmother's legacy might have been built on a foundation of failure and self-doubt. That evening, when Carmen returned for her second night of confession, Maya found herself asking questions she had never asked any visitor before. Do you feel better after talking about this? Maya asked. Yes and no, Carmen answered honestly. It's a relief to finally tell someone the truth, but talking about it doesn't change what I did. It doesn't help the family I hurt. It doesn't make up for 40 years of cowardice. Then why do you keep coming back? Carmen was quiet for a long time, because even though talking can't fix the past, it makes me feel less alone with the pain. For 40 years, I've been the only person in the world who knew what I did. Now there's someone else who knows, someone who doesn't hate me for it. That doesn't solve everything, but it helps. Maya thought about Carmen's words long after she left. Maybe her grandmother hadn't been trying to solve people's problems. Maybe she had just been trying to make sure nobody had to carry their pain completely alone. But was that enough? As Maya sat in the darkness, waiting to see if another visitor would arrive, she wondered if witnessing pain without offering real solutions was actually a form of help, or if it was just making broken people feel temporarily better about staying broken. She thought about Detective Rodriguez's questions, about her father's concerns, about her friend Anna's hurt feelings. She thought about Lucia, the college student who needed legal help, not just someone to listen to her story. Maya realized she was at a crossroads. She could continue doing exactly what her grandmother had done, knowing that some people would be helped and others would remain trapped in their pain. Or she could find a way to honor the tradition while also providing the practical help people actually needed. The choice would determine not just her future, but the future of everyone who might knock on her door seeking comfort in the darkness. Maya spent the next 2 days in a panic, trying to figure out how to save everything without destroying the trust people had placed in her. She couldn't sleep, couldn't eat, and definitely couldn't focus on anything except the ticking clock. In 48 hours, Detective Rodriguez would return, and she still had no idea what to tell him. On the second morning, something unexpected happened. Instead of waiting for evening like all her other visitors, someone knocked on her door at 9 a.m. Maya opened it to find Detective Rodriguez again, but this time he wasn't in uniform. He was wearing regular clothes and looked nervous. "Ms. Maya," he said, shifting his weight from foot to foot, "I hope you don't mind me coming back early, but I need to ask you something, and it's not official police business." Maya invited him in. Confused but curious, he sat at her kitchen table and stared at his hands for a long moment. "My partner thinks I'm crazy for doing this," he finally said, "but I heard things about your grandmother over the years, stories about how she helped people. And yesterday, after I left here, I couldn't stop thinking about those stories." Maya waited, not sure where this was going. "I've been a cop for 15 years. Detective Rodriguez continued. "I've seen a lot of pain, a lot of people carrying guilt and shame with nowhere to put it. And honestly, I've been carrying some of that weight myself." He told Maya about a case from 3 years ago. A teenage boy had been shoplifting, and during the arrest, he had panicked and run into traffic. A car hit him, and he spent 2 weeks in the hospital with serious injuries. Technically, Detective Rodriguez had followed all the proper procedures, but he couldn't stop thinking that if he had handled the situation differently, the boy might not have gotten hurt. "I know it wasn't really my fault," he said, "but I keep replaying that day, wondering if there was something else I could have done. My wife is tired of hearing about it. My partner tells me to just move on, but I can't." Maya realized that Detective Rodriguez wasn't there to shut down her operation. He was there because he needed what she offered. Would it help to talk about it? Maya asked. For the next 2 hours, Detective Rodriguez sat in room 7 and told Maya everything about that day, about his guilt, about his fear that he wasn't as good a police officer as he thought he was. Maya listened the way her grandmother had taught her, without judgment, without trying to fix anything, just witnessing his pain. When he was finished, Detective Rodriguez looked lighter, the way all her visitors did when they finally put down their burdens. "I understand now," he said, "what you're doing here, what your grandmother did. This isn't about running an illegal business. This is about giving people a place to be human." "But I still don't have the paperwork you need," Maya said. Detective Rodriguez smiled. "What if we figured out a way to make this legal? What if we found a way to protect what you're doing while also satisfying the requirements?" Over the next week, Detective Rodriguez introduced Maya to people she never would have met on her own. Social workers, therapists, community organizers, people who understood the value of what she was doing and wanted to help her do it better. Together, they created something new. Maya registered as a non-profit organization called the Rosa Foundation, named after her grandmother. The 3 special rooms remained exactly as they were, but now visitors had options. They could still come for anonymous, one-night stays where they just needed someone to listen. But they could also choose to connect with professional counselors, support groups, or other resources if they wanted more than just a safe place to confess. The brass key her grandmother had given her became the symbol of the foundation. Maya had copies made for the volunteers who helped run the expanded operation. Each key represented the same promise her grandmother had made. This is a place where you can speak your truth without fear. Carmen became Maya's first official volunteer. After her cancer diagnosis, she decided to spend her remaining time helping other people find the courage she had lacked for 40 years. She started a support group for people carrying old guilt, people who had made mistakes they couldn't forgive themselves for. "I can't change what I did," Carmen told the group during their first meeting. "But maybe I can help someone else avoid spending 40 years running from their pain like I did." Maya's friend Anna came back too, after Maya finally explained what she had been doing. Anna was studying social work in college, and she started volunteering at the foundation as part of her field experience. "I wish you had told me sooner," Anna said as they organized supplies for the new counseling rooms. "I thought you were pushing me away because you didn't want to be friends anymore. I didn't realize you were drowning under the weight of all this, even." Maya's father eventually came around when he saw the official nonprofit paperwork, the volunteer schedule, and the thank you letters from people the foundation had helped. He began to understand that his daughter wasn't throwing her life away. She was building something meaningful. "Your grandmother would be proud," he told Maya one evening as they watched volunteers setting up for a support group meeting. "She always knew you were special. I just didn't understand what she saw in you." Until now, the foundation grew slowly but steadily. Some nights, Maya still received traditional visitors who just needed someone to listen in the darkness. But other nights, the rooms housed people who were taking the first steps toward rebuilding their lives. People attended support groups, met with counselors, and connected with others who had faced similar struggles. Maya kept her grandmother's leather journal, but she also started a new one. This journal tracked not just confessions, but outcomes. People who found jobs after dealing with their shame about past mistakes. Families who reunited after years of silence. Individuals who found the courage to seek help for addictions, mental health issues, or abusive relationships. The most surprising change was in Maya herself. For months, she had been drowning under the weight of other people's secrets. But once she started connecting people with real help instead of just offering temporary comfort, she felt lighter too. She wasn't carrying their pain alone anymore. She was part of a network of people working together to transform suffering into healing. 1 year after inheriting the boarding house, Maya sat in her grandmother's old chair, reading through both journals. The old one was filled with thousands of stories of pain witnessed and temporarily relieved. The new one was filled with stories of pain transformed into growth, healing, and hope. Late that night, a young man knocked on her door. He was maybe 22, carrying a backpack and looking lost. He had heard about the foundation from a friend. He said he had been struggling with addiction and was ready to admit he needed help. Maya gave him the same choice she offered everyone now. He could stay in one of the special rooms and just talk about his struggles if that's all he was ready for, or he could connect with a counselor, join a support group, and start the hard work of building a new life. "What would you recommend?" he asked. Maya thought about her grandmother, about Carmen, about Detective Rodriguez, about all the people who had found different kinds of healing in these rooms. "Both," she said. "Sometimes we need to start by just being heard, but eventually, we need to take action too." As she led him upstairs to room 7, Maya realized that she had found a way to honor her grandmother's legacy, while also creating something new. The boarding house was still a place where people could safely confess their pain, but now it was also a place where they could find the tools and support they needed to transform that pain into something better. The brass key her grandmother had given her still opened the same doors. But now those doors led not just to temporary comfort, but to real hope for lasting change. Maya had learned that witnessing pain was sacred work, but helping people heal from that pain was even more sacred. Every night, as she waited to see who might appear at her door, Maya felt the weight of her responsibility. But it was a different kind of weight now, not the crushing burden of carrying secrets alone, but the hopeful weight of being part of something larger than herself, something that honored both her grandmother's wisdom and her own understanding of what broken people really needed to become whole again.